how do you give back without losing yourself, without disintegrating into pieces and all those pieces just flying away from the center until nothing's left? How do you make sure that you hold on to your core? And this might be you if you're somebody that maybe you're creatively inclined, you're into different paths such as poetry or writing or painting or sculpture or filmmaking or acting. And there are these questions around how much do you contribute to humanity if you pursue those paths? And so you start thinking about paths that maybe are a little bit more humanitarian, maybe are a little bit more inclined towards activism or direct service, like being within the medical profession or being a nurse and caring and nurturing for people and healing people in that way. And if that's you and you're potentially doubting your path and doubting whether you should go down towards these creatively inclined pursuits, then I want to talk directly to you. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Joe Yuli, and I'm a philosopher. I help people from all around the world to choose the right career path with conviction by unearthing their career archetype. And I work with a lot of people in the creative domains, people that just are more open, they're more sensitive to the happenings of life, they're more aware of the subtleties that go on within the environment. And one thing that can often happen is that they start to doubt their path because it doesn't directly contribute to humanity in the way that other paths do. At least it's not as in awareness as other paths. So say, for example, you have an activist path. Now, an activist might be, pro a particular cause, and they might be pushing that cause, and their push might, visually and in awareness show some serious change in the world. And if you're an onlooker and you're looking at that, you're like, wow, they actually impacted something, they moved something forward, they changed something, or at least they're moving the world and the collective awareness towards its aim. And then you might look at what you're doing and think, what am I doing? Is this really helping the greater scheme of things? Am I just being selfish by pursuing this thing? Should I be pursuing this thing? And should I not just drop my paintbrushes and jump in to the group and hold a sign and trudge along? And these are the kinds of thoughts that start to pop up and start to arise. Should I be pursuing this path? Or should I drop it all to contribute to humanity in the way in which everybody is sort of saying, hey, you should probably work in this way? And that's another thing. A lot of the reason why this guilt sort of arises for this path of creativity is simply because the group, maybe it's not even a direct, like, hey, you should go and do this. Maybe the group is just pushing it so hard around you. Maybe you're seeing it on social media. Maybe you're seeing it in your friends' groups and they're just like talking about it all the time. And it just pushes you into this area of like, hey, you should probably contribute, or you're a bad person, or you're not doing the right thing. And so this guilt, like I said, it arises and it festers. It festers there if it's not looked at and sort of confronted. Now, I want to tell you a story that sort of illustrates why you should go ahead and pursue the selfish calling. And just to sort of skip to the end of this, the selfish calling is the thing that will allow you to give back to humanity in your greatest form, in the way that you are able to. Not in the way that somebody else is meant to do it, not in the way that sort of everybody's telling you to do it, but it's in the way that you're able to do it. Now, the story that I refer to is, I actually read Marlon Brando's biography a few years back, and he's been one of the prime examples as to why creative people should be pursuing their art form, their medium, and that's how they contribute. Now, you're not going to do it in the same way that he did it, but it does hold a lesson within it. And so, if you don't know who Marlon Brando is, he was a very, very, very famous actor. And, if you were to think about him today, he's at the same level as the DiCaprios, as the Chamalets, as the Brad Pitts, very much in that sort of A-list sort of section. And Marlon Brando ended up acting in the film The Godfather. Now, The Godfather ended up winning many awards, one of which went directly to Marlon Brando. Now, I think it was for Best Supporting Actor, don't quote me on it, but he didn't actually show up to the award show. He skipped it. And instead of going to the award show in his place, he gave it to someone else. Now, the person he gave it to was someone by the name of Little Feather. Now, this was a Native American woman who took his place And when he won the award, she went up and gave a speech. And her speech was essentially about the mistreatment of Native Americans in general, but also within the industry, and sort of shed light onto that issue. Now, this was an issue that Marlon Brando was very, very passionate about, which is why he changed places with her. And no one would have really been speaking and talking about this issue. You know, you can't imagine this in the homes of everyday Americans if this didn't happen at this award show. And because it happened in this way and became this sort of phenomenon where everyone had to start talking about this particular issue, and was this right or was this wrong? Should he have done this? Should he have not done this? You know, he ended up getting questioned on talk shows. Why did you do it? Should you have done it? It became something of a, you know, it just shone light onto the issue. It shone light in such a way where everyone was just going on and on about it. Now, we have to think about that. Think about Marlon Brando's profession, acting. He's in films, he's in movies. And think about what he did for that cause. He brought a platform to it, he raised the awareness of it, and he showed everybody, hey, this is a thing, this is a problem, this is an issue, we need to look at this. Now, if Marlon Brando didn't go ahead and pursue acting, would he have been able to bring that particular issue to light in the same way? I doubt it. I doubt it. If he had of, you know, as a young guy said, look, I'm not going to pursue acting, instead, I'm going to go all in on being a humanitarian. I'm going to go all in on activists, and I'm going to leave behind the whole movie star thing. Well, if he had have done that, then he doesn't bring forth the light that he brought forth to that particular issue. Now, the other interesting thing that happens in that biography is that there are times throughout his career, periodically, where he will leave the film industry and go and pursue humanitarian causes. And every time he leaves and doesn't want to act and has like this disgruntlement with it, his career starts to go down and his ability to help out goes down. And so by pursuing his path of acting, because every time he goes back, he's able to help the different causes he is so like passionate about through either money or through giving them spotlight and raising the awareness of them. So every time he does really, really well at acting, it ends up helping the causes. Every time he does not as well at acting, he ends up not giving back to these causes and not contributing in the way that he could have. And so it's in his best interest, if he's to help the causes, to pursue his actual path, which is being an actor and being in movies. Now, which actually leads me back to people that are like, should I really be pursuing my creativity? Should I really be pursuing poetry writing? Should I really be pursuing designing in this way, or should I just drop it all for real, direct service? And the answer is almost always you should be pursuing your true calling. I remember a few years ago I was at the Louvre, and you go into the Louvre after you wait on the big ass lines, and you go into the Louvre and you witness these amazing paintings, you witness these amazing sculptures, and you're essentially just in awe the entire time, just absorbing the beauty, absorbing the aesthetics. As you walk around, you kind of just walking around like, whoa, that's amazing, that's amazing, that's amazing. And imagine, right, if I'm walking around the Louvre and there is no paintings on the wall and there are no sculptures, there's nothing. It's barren, it's empty, it's cold, it's void. I'm in this place that just has this echo going through it because no one would visit, no one would come again. The Louvre has about 9 million people per year visiting it. If there was no art there, no one's showing up. And I bring this up not to say that, hey, this is art can eventually pay off in terms of the finances, but I say it another way, that we as humans, we go for pilgrimages, like literal pilgrimages across the world to go and view and take in art. And not only does it give the collective meaning, but it also gives the people that create the work deep meaning in their lives. And this is something that is really important. If you are to pursue a path that is antithetical to your path, a path that is even, a slight derivative of your true path, you're never going to feel that sense of deep, true inner fulfillment, that deep, true, like, this is what I'm meant for, this is what I'm meant to be doing, this is the direction I'm meant to go in. It doesn't happen. You're not going to get it. You have to be walking the path that you're meant for in order to truly feel this is it. This is why I'm here. This is what I'm meant to be doing with my life. This brings meaning to my life. And so there is very much this first half of the equation, the selfish half of the equation, which is you need to walk your path in order to have meaning in your life at all. To walk your path is to keep you alive. And I mean that quite literally. Many people that don't walk their path, they don't have a reason for being here, especially as the world moves away from particular types of religious dogma and all these different sort of structures that no longer give them this sense of commitment or connection to the divine. And so there is this lacking for it, but you can find it in your work. And in the artistic spheres, it's one of the ways, and one of the best ways to get into connection with these higher domains, because you're constantly exploring outside of the boundaries of the structures of what we know to be reality. And so you have the selfish side of things, where you wouldn't even want to be here if you couldn't do the proper work that you're meant to be doing. And it's why when people don't walk their path, they're having to pull themselves out of bed, they're having to trudge along to, the shower, and it's like, oh, another day, I have to keep going. It's why it's such an effort. And yet, the other side of the equation is the side where all those people are coming to witness and view art. That's why all the millions of people go and they watch Netflix. I mean, that in and of itself is, we can call it entertainment, but really what it is that is creativity coming out in one form where it can be absorbed by other people. And so there is this other side where if you pursue your craft with obsession and intensity and wanting to get better every single day, and you're constantly up-leveling yourself in the process, you're able to give back to humanity, whereby they can get an introduction into meaning, into purpose, into why they should even care about this in the first place. And so not only does it give you a reason for being here, but it also introduces other people into the domains outside of the boundaries in which they find themselves in. You have to remind yourself, especially if you are creatively inclined, if you are spiritually inclined, that everyday people don't venture into these spaces. They don't venture into these domains. Their philosophy and their worldview is very much being given to them by what they're scrolling through on social media, or by what they're hearing at work, or what they're listening to on the radio. I have tradies across the road that are building a house, and they've always got the radio on, and this is just informing them of how to see the world all the time. And they're constantly being informed by people that are just yapping on the radio, the different advertisements that are coming through, and it's informing how they see the world. And yet, when they get an introduction from people that have pursued their path within the creative domains, and they get to connect with it. It was very funny when I was in Europe and I was around people that clearly hadn't taken an art in their entire lives, and you go to a museum and they're walking around this museum and they're like, whoa, I didn't know that this was here, and this is changing, what is that? And they start questioning things automatically just from being introduced to this stuff. And it represents what these types of paths can bring to humanity, not simply that, hey, we're just here and we're just, here to serve, we're here to just change societal structures, but also that we're here to live, that we're here to enjoy life, that we're here to really just be in it, be a part of it. And without that, it's what is the purpose of this at all? And there's the famous, the famous Camus essay where he talks about Sisyphus pushing the rock up the mountain, and Sisyphus was, of course, forced to push that rock up and down the mountain. But Camus says that we have to imagine that Sisyphus is happy and that he finds meaning in pushing that rock up and down the mountain. And what these paths can do for humanity is they can present them a world where they can be happy, where they can also begin to explore what is going on. It can introduce people to curiosity. There's oftentimes people that are naturally creatively inclined. They're not aware that other people aren't sensitive to the world in the way that they are. They're not aware of the subtleties. They're not aware of the nuance. They're not aware or able to look outside of the boundaries of their own, morning routine because they're so entrenched in it. And yet, simply by being introduced to it, they can start to think differently, think for themselves, and gain a sense of personal sovereignty from that. And that's so powerful, And just imagine if the world didn't have the George Orwell George Orwell's of the world. If the world didn't have 1984, imagine if the world didn't have Marie Curie and the ability to bring forth, the progression and scientific discoveries and her improvements in X-rays. I mean, just imagine if we didn't have Jean-Luc Godard, and the French New Wave movement, and being able to change perspectives in stories and what he could do with stories because of those shifts away from the traditional way of making film. And this comes obviously with years and years of pursuit, but in order to pursue something with years on it, you really do have to be fully committed and fully devoted. You can't be constantly looking and be like, hey, should I contribute to humanity in this way because everyone else is yelling like, hey, you should contribute to humanity in that way. You won't ever be able to reach your peak. You won't ever be able to give back in the way that you're meant to give back. Not in the way that other people tell you to give back, but in the way that you're meant to give back. And by doing that, you get the best of both worlds. Not only do you get to hold yourself, hold your center, hold the core of who you are stable, and in this you get to know more and more who you are over time, rather than lose yourself and have to get back to the beginning because you lost yourself, which is typically what happens when people go through some sort of midlife crisis, is that they lost their center and they're trying to get it back again. And instead of that going on, what happens is you hold your center, but you also are able to contribute to the world. You're able to give back because you know who you are and you know how you give back in the world. And that is so important. And if you're interested in learning more about how I help people to unearth their career archetypes so that they can know the right career path to choose, and the way that I do that, by the way, is in Unearth membership. And in that membership, there's other members in there, and I show people and walk people through the process of unearthing their career archetype, knowing about their different temptation paths. These are paths that are so close to the real thing that actually blind you from the thing itself, and show them and guide them about different pieces of themselves so they can gain awareness of who they are, their calling, their reason for being. And then later on, we start to make those steps real in the modern world, because in the modern world, you need to be able to pay the bills. In the modern world, you need to be able to navigate the digital landscape if you're that way inclined. And so you need to be aware of this stuff. And so if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link below.